Welcome back to the Sunday Show. Michael Steele and Howard Dean are back with me. Michael Steele, well, where I'm pointing is the former chair of the Democratic Party, former chair of the Republican Party. All right, I want to, because you both were talking about how you're riffing off of what Whip Clyburn had to say about, talk about the half full, talk about the stuff you got done. 6.4 million jobs added. You had the American Rescue Plan right at the start of the administration. 200 million Americans fully vaccinated. The bipartisan infrastructure law is now the law of the land, and a whole bunch of other stuff that the administration needs to be talking about more and more. But I got to go to something that the president said during his press conference, his marathon press conference. Let's just play it, and I'll get you guys to talk about it on the other side.
I did not anticipate that there'd be such a stalwart effort to make sure that the most important thing was that President Biden didn't get anything done. Think about this. What are Republicans for? What are they for? Name me one thing they're for. What's Mitch for? What's he for on immigration? What's he for?
So, Chairman Dean, how hard is it going to be? Because I think the president is right to ask that question. What's Mitch McConnell for? What are the Republicans for? You know, in this two-party system, you need two parties in order to govern. But we've seen over the last year, if Republicans don't want to do anything, they don't have to do anything, and they won't. And Democrats have to do all the heavy lifting themselves, which, as we have seen, is no guarantee of anything happening.
This is the failure of the mainstream media. They have failed, and they are intellectually lazy. That's the first time I saw that clip. That's appalling. Biden's saying exactly the right thing, because this is a choice. This is not a choice between for or against President Biden. It's a choice about which party you want to control. Biden has a story to tell, and I think Jim Clyburn was absolutely right about that. But he isn't doing what has to be done. Can you imagine Bill Clinton not going after the Republicans for blockade, for saying that their only objective is to stop anything constructive from happening? It's outrageous. Biden said it. The media didn't cover it.
You know, Chairman Steele, can Mitch McConnell and the Republicans get away with not articulating what they're for? I mean, so far, yes, but can they do that for the next 4 years?
Yes, they can. They can. I mean, it is the advantage you have of being out of power is that you get to sit there and poke fun and make fun and go after the guy or gal who is in power. The expectation is not so much that I've got to put something on the table. The expectation of the American people is, what are you doing as the person in charge? So, you know, the Republicans can wax all day long about Ukraine, but it's ultimately going to be what the president does. The Republicans can wax all day about health care, but it's going to be what the president does. But having said that, it doesn't mean that Joe Biden doesn't have the ability to compare and contrast, because Republicans do want to set themselves up to take over. And Mitch McConnell exposed himself when he was asked after the president's press conference, what do you want to do? And he said, well, I don't know. You have to wait and see. And that clip that's a commercial. All right. Pull that clip. I mean, so strategically, how you reposition against your opponents, if you're Joe Biden, is going to be the critical thing in this year leading up to the November election. And the last point, you can't be surprised that the Republicans are doing what they were doing because they've been doing it since Barack Obama entered the White House. So so surprise is over. All right. You got to know how to deal with it.
And Chairman Dean, I'm going to give you the last word in the last 30 seconds that we have. How do you set up a contrast with a party, and particularly a party on Capitol Hill, that is they're AWOL in terms of saying what they're for?
Well, Biden has made the same mistake that every inside the Beltway Democrat makes. You think you can deal with these people. You can't deal with the Republicans. They're not interested in dealing with you. They frankly don't give a damn about the country. Their essential agenda is to get into power by any means necessary, and then hold it. What Biden needs to do is get out there and have a press conference every other week if necessary and do what he just did. It can't take 2 hours. But The days of when he was in the Senate and everybody got along and my good man and all this crap are gone. This is a war we're in right now for the survival of the greatest democracy on the face of the earth. And we have to fight, and we have to be willing to fight, and the president of the United States has to lead us.
Well, that's all I can say to that. Howard Dean, former chair of the Democratic National Committee, Michael Steele, former chair of the Republican National Committee. You guys were great. We're going to have to make this a thing. Thank you both very much for coming to the Sunday Show.